WRKS Pickens Jackson.
All systems go.
Live from the Whiskey 61 Lounge inside the Bank Plus studio.
This is Out of Order.
Live in the studio. It's the Out of Bounds Show with Bo Bounds. Streaming live worldwide on the Out of Bounds radio app. And on your radio at ESPN 105.9.
All set? Let's go.
The Zone.
Oh, man. War damn Eagle. Good morning. Oh, the coaching carousel. Load me up. Out of Bounds. Good morning. Good morning. Hope you're doing well. Thanks for making us your SEC football show of choice in the great state of Mississippi and streaming it throughout the state and out of state on the Out of Bounds radio app. Show is powered by the Golden Moon Casino Sportsbook. That place was hopping this weekend. Bet $50 there. Play award-winning Dancing Rabbit Golf Club for $30. Welcome in. Grab a cup of coffee. You may need more than that. It is the holidays. Some of you are checking out for the rest of the year. Some of you are in a deer stand or a duck blind. Whatever, welcome in. I've got the Blakey Blakester with me. I'm your host, Bo Bounds. We're off and running 3 hours. Most of it will be SEC football. We may dabble a little bit in some NFL, but we've got a slam-packed show today. Let me line it up for you. A couple different ways you can get in touch with us. Farm Bureau Insurance call-in line, 601-707-3750. Twitter handle at Bo Bounds, and the Mississippi Ag John Deere Tractor text line is 601-885-3776. We got a couple of guests that will join us, one pretty early, Cole Cubelic, former Auburn offensive lineman, called the Auburn-Mississippi State game Saturday night with the SEC Network in Jackson, Birmingham. Our friend Cole Cubelic will stop by at 7:30 today.
The Gus bus is broke.
Oh, man, oh, man, oh, man. Tom Luganbill, ESPN, 8:30. So Lugs, usually 7:30 on Tuesday, had to move around a little bit. We'll go Cole Cubelic at 7:30, Tom Luganbill at 8:30. Now, I'm going to hit some of the game, and then we're going to get into the Gus Malzahn deal where he was fired yesterday, and only in the SEC it does mean more. You win a game, you're 6-4, and you get fired, and they're going to pay 21 or close to $21 million. They don't negotiate it down, and they owe half of it in the first 30 days. That's a pretty good Christmas present.
That's a smacking check.
Yeah,
big boy money.
10+ million, boom, and then we'll pay you out, over X amount of time. But Gus is gone. But let's discuss the game a little bit. But we're also going to hit where Auburn's going to go, because Ole Miss and Mississippi State play Auburn every year.
Yeah.
So boy, this was a year to beat them. But they're not good, but they have some. Does this make sense? They're not good. Auburn's not a good football team, but they've got some really nice pieces. And
mostly defensive pieces.
I thought their defensive line worked the MSU offensive line. And look, neither team got into any rhythm, tempo. Life is so much about rhythm and tempo. Do you have it or do you not? And they're just, Blake, I didn't see the rhythm or the tempo on offense from either team. And Mississippi State had their opportunities. Auburn allowed them to hang around.
Oh, the whole game.
And at 16-10, it was there. This Mississippi State team is just not built to go get it yet. Nope. You see they've got a ton of people coming back next year. You see players making plays that are, either young or coming back, which for some of you is exciting, something to build on. But you want to win a game. I mean, you need to win a game. Look, as soon as we turn the page on recap in the weekend, you'll hear me say this all week. They need to beat Missouri bad. You know, you need to win a football game. It's been a long time since Vanderbilt. So, kids will work and work and work, but there's got to be some reward through all the hard work. So, Auburn, Bo Nix made one play with Seth Williams, and then Tank Bigsby did some cutting through, and
he just grinded.
Yeah,
not enough legs on the Mississippi State defense.
No.
Right at the end of the day, you can do what Chad Morris wants to do, which is run 2-yard gains, so that eventually you get 4-yard gains. That works against the State defense that's depleted.
Sure,
Yeah,
and is on the field too much.
That's what I mean. Like, you just can't. They don't have the legs. It's just not there.
There were a couple of moments where you thought Mississippi State might get it going, and they're just, drops, missed blocks, missed throw, the whole thing.
The Spivey drop on the first field goal drive killed you, because if you score a touchdown like that early and you just show a little bit of life offensively,
right,
the defense is energized for the rest of the game. The offense feels a little bit of confidence. I'm not saying you score a ton more points, but I mean, you at least feel some type of hope. But like you said, those drops and those losses just add up after time.
They did. And, Will's doing everything he can, but he's a true freshman with a little bit of help, but not enough in this league, okay? And as Blake said, Auburn's got some dudes on defense. They always have. Since I can remember football in 1980, Auburn has been something on defense for the most part. And just, sending dudes to the NFL and so on. So on Saturday they beat Mississippi State to finish their year 6-4, and they're going to a bowl game. Well, unless they decline, whatever. But which I don't think the league will allow them to do that. So Kevin Steele can lead them through, and everybody's trying to get as much moolah as they can after shutting down the world, last spring. So Sunday, Auburn fires Gus Malzahn. And the question is, do they have someone lined up? Or are they just thinking we can get one of these 4 or 5 guys? We can get Mario Cristobal. Most of you don't know who that is. He's the head coach at Oregon. He was at Alabama for a couple of years. Yeah. In fact, he and Kiffin can't stand each other. But that's a whole other discussion for another day.
Known as a super recruiter?
He's known as a super recruiter, and he did hire Scott Satterfield and Todd Orlando.
You could say he's got a little bit of the Pittman Orgeron magic in terms of, like, he is more of the hire the coordinators than just a Mullen hands-on run the offense.
Yeah, I mean, he's not a scheme, put together game plans every week guy on offense or defense. Now, down at was it Florida International? I think that's where he found Satterfield and Todd Orlando. I don't know if he stumbled on them or what, but anyway, the point is Mario Cristobal is in play. Billy Napier, you would think, is in play. Matt Campbell at Iowa State. I know none of you watch Iowa State football, but he's done a magnificent job up there.
So
they don't, they have to go and get players under rocks and super develop them and all that stuff. And then there's some others that, Freeze, I don't know. Josh Heupel at Central Florida. If y'all remember, Heupel was Mike Leach's first quarterback at Oklahoma. When Stoops hired Leach, that was his first signee, Josh Heupel. And Heupel is at Central Florida. Steve Sarkisian, Lane Kiffin. We'll see. Because Lane won and because he's a name, he's going to be mentioned in almost every job opening.
Yes.
And he doesn't have that love affair that Freeze had with Ole Miss. For Kiffin, this is purely transactional. It's, I want to win games because I'm a head coach and I'm competitive. That, he's never going to grow any kind of emotional affinity to Ole Miss. We're powered by Mississippi Sports Medicine and Orthopedic Center. Big board coming up next. More on, we have an opening on the plains at Auburn, War Dam Eagle, Cole Cubelic, SEC Network at 7:30.
Bank Plus makes it easier to bank. With extended drive-through hours plus 24/7 online and mobile banking, we're here when you need us. Lost your debit card? Get a new one instantly at any Bank Plus location. No waiting for the mail. And interactive teller machines offer drive-up personal service 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Monday through Friday and 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. Saturdays. Your bank, your plus. Learn more at bankplus.net. Member FDIC.
The Big Board. What's on the Big Board?
Don't look now, but Ole Miss has gone from like 94th in recruiting to 18th. Right now, 247 Sports. They've got Texas in front of them and Arkansas behind them.
Just trying to find some recruits.
Just letting you know, Texas is 17th, Ole Miss is 18th, and Arkansas is 19th. What do you think about that? Mississippi Ag John Deere Tractor text line 601-885-3776. Mississippi State currently comes in at 32nd. Ole Miss has 20 commits. MSU has 18 commits.
If a wise man had a dove in his pocket and a rock in his hand, where's the bullfrog?
That is Mike Leach's recruiting philosophy. And so we'll see how the two teams close. Signing day is Wednesday.
Woof.
According to the experts, signing day is Wednesday.
December 16th.
December 16th.
Let's do it.
All right. Recapping the game. Auburn beats Mississippi State 24-10. They were pretty simple. They were better.
Barely, but enough.
Yeah, but I think if they played 10 times, you're looking at Auburn going.
I don't disagree with that. But offensively, watching that game, it was there was much more resemblance to 3-2 than there was to anything we've seen over the last few years.
Yeah, I don't
Saturday.
know why was Leach punting on Auburn's 46-yard line, Blake?
To start the fourth quarter.
I don't.
You had all the whole quarter break to come up with a plan and a game and a play. It's why do you call a timeout on 4th and 2 at the opponent 12-yard line to run your kicker out there and kick a field goal? You're a 2-win football team, Mike. You have 2 wins. Go out there and win the game. I mean, your team needs some type of inspiration. Somebody's got to take the bull by the horns and go out there and say, hey, this is how you win a football game. It's not by kicking field goals and punting.
Well, the field goal thing I can somewhat be okay with to get some points on the board. But I don't know why they punted at the 40-whatever yard line at the beginning of the fourth quarter. That doesn't make any sense to me. But somebody that's smarter when it comes to football maybe could explain that to me. Now, that goes against everything that Mike has talked about. A lot of you have read his book. I've read his book. I mean, he was adamant, straightforward in there. He's like, why would you do that around midfield? Especially in plus. I can see Dan Mullen doing that. Speaking of, we'll get to Mullen here in a minute.
He did it against Ole Miss and Alabama.
Yeah.
Did it in the Nick Fitzgerald-Keaton game. They did some dumb stuff like that where they didn't go for it. And like when Nick got hurt and Keaton had to come in. And then, again, against Alabama, they punted.
Well, yeah, I remember the Alabama. I mean, he was even closer than Leach was.
Yeah.
They were on like the 41-42.
Yeah.
It wasn't but like a yard and a half.
And you had a running quarterback.
Well, and Ayers Williams and anyway, they couldn't stop him that night. I think they were going for 6 yards a carry. But here's the deal: Auburn was better. They disrupted more of the pocket, and they made a couple of big plays.
Yep.
And they won, and then they fired their coach. So that's how much they think about beating Mississippi State. 1, and 2. They decided to go ahead and just run Gus Malzahn off the plains. And Gus has a good record. He's been able to beat Alabama and Georgia. And, of course, he was within a whisker of winning the national championship. But, believe it or not, God, it doesn't feel like it. It's scary. That was 7 years ago in 2013. Now, here's why Gus is different than Ed Ogeron and Will Muschamp and Jeremy Pruitt. I know Will got another job, but I don't think he'll get. Gus can get another good job. Like if Vitek moves off of Fuente, any number. I mean, look, Tennessee, that'd be an upgrade. I mean, I know for whatever reason Gus has made it harder than it is on offense, and I don't understand that. And I don't understand why in the world he allowed Chad Morris. One, he hired him, and two, to call plays. But, like, Gus has juice. There will be teams that will want to hire him. I mean, he'd be an upgrade at LSU. Right?
I think so. Over Linehan?
No.
Oh, over Orgeron?
Orgeron. I'm not
well,
talking
I
about
don't think they're
offensive
firing
coordinator.
Orgeron today, but
Well,
yeah,
that's not what I was talking about.
They would take him.
My point was Gus Malzahn's a better coach than Ed Orgeron, even though Ed Orgeron has a natty.
Definitely that.
But, I mean, Gene Chizik has a natty. Now, LSU in Florida, what did you make about the shoe game? First of all, speaking of not scoring in the red zone,
Woof.
Florida starts the game tripping all over themselves, literally. Kyle Trask, he's just not an option to run the football.
Nah.
It's like running Tyler Russell at quarterback. It just takes, a year and a half to get back to the line of scrimmage. It's not going to work. Dan's gone away from putting Emory Jones in the game inside the 5, inside the 10, short yardage situations to give you a threat.
The whole season. I mean, it's been the Kyle Trask Heisman campaign all season. And for the most part, rightfully so, because they've pretty much scored at will in every game.
No doubt. But, man, you have no option as far as zone read with Kyle Trask in the game. But look, Florida, it was one of those weird nights in the SEC. The fog, some of the decision-making, Florida not able to do what they wanted to do, and boom, we have a shoe that's thrown when Florida's getting off the field and making LSU punt. LSU makes them pay by drilling a field goal. Florida does what you're supposed to do with 23 seconds left. They're able to get the ball down the field, and they get a good look at it, so to speak, and they miss. And now, Dan Mullen was Salty Dan in the post-game press conference in Gainesville, and now they get to go play Bama in the SEC championship game. And they weren't going to win this weekend. 2, 3, 4% chance?
Yeah, double digit. 2 touchdown underdogs.
Yeah.
So, it's the Florida offense has been so well put together, and they have just not had, even the A&M game where they didn't have their best game, they didn't seem to make the mistakes that they made Saturday night. But that LSU-Florida game, that rivalry has been that way since I can remember watching. It's always been freaky, weird, hotly contested.
And give LSU credit, their players haven't quit.
Nope. We talked about that.
We talked about Auburn going in and not being interested. They played hard. There's something to this. You got to give all these teams, man. I don't see Georgia could have. I thought Georgia would go to Missouri and be totally disinterested.
Would they be
ran all over Missouri, which Mississippi State doesn't do? So you can take all that out off the table for the matchup this weekend.
Would they be a one-loss team if JT Barrett had played the whole season? JT Daniels. Sorry, I don't know why I said Barrett.
I was like, what?
JT Daniels.
I think there's something to that.
I still think they would have lost Alabama. I don't think that they even, especially because they wouldn't have been ready then in week 4 or 3. But their offense is light years different with Daniels than with, and I guess I hate to say this, but we should have known, than with a walk-on, community college transfer quarterback.
Right.
Like, he just wasn't.
Well, Stetson Bennett IV has been my favorite player this year, and you know that.
And most every defense that played Georgia, he was their favorite player.
No question.
Because this Georgia offense George Pickens and Daniels will be a front runner to have SEC Player of the Year seasons next year.
Surely he'll do a Tommy Hill. Is it Hilfiger or Finger? The brand?
The brand, Tommy Hilfiger, right?
Yeah. Surely he'll do some kind of photo shoot over the holidays, right? Stetson Bennett IV. They'll just come out with a pullover. It'll just be called Stetson Bennett IV. This is what you wear to the country club on Sunday. They got to do this. I was going to say J. Crew, but he's not good enough for J. Crew. But so I was thinking, anyway. Cole Cubelic, 7:30 on what's going to happen down on the plains with Auburn. Welcome in. Good morning. It's going to be a wild show. Tom Luganbill at 9:30. I'm looking forward to it. The show is brought to you by Mississippi Ag. Back in a minute. Are you tired of the hassle of wearing glasses or contact lenses? Wouldn't it be great to live your life with clear vision? The wait is over. It's time to consider blade-free LASIK. Dr. Kirk Jeffries and the staff at Eye Care Professionals are committed to making your vision their focus. They offer the most advanced laser technology available and deliver the very best results. Call us for your complimentary screening and start seeing the world with more clarity. Call Eye Care Professionals today, 601-366-1085. Eye Care Professionals.
Come on, everyone ready?
This is the SEC Insider Hit. Presented by your local Farm Bureau Insurance agent. Go local. Go with a home team.
All right, we don't have a lot of time with Cole Cubelic. Jocks in Birmingham, SEC Network, played at Auburn, Auburn alum. He joins us on the Abita Amber guest line. The SEC Insider Hit this morning is brought to you by Farm Bureau Insurance, but we wanted to bring Cole on to discuss Gus Malzahn getting fired yesterday and what direction Auburn may go. Cole, with what you've been able to find out in the last 24 hours, with Auburn doing this yesterday, one, were you surprised? And two, by doing this with the buyout and everything and the timing before signing day, do you think that they already have someone lined up?
I think they have an idea of who they – I think there are multiple guys that were lined up, and I think there are guys that they believe that they can get. I think there is a guy or two that are the top targets. And obviously, as you know, negotiations sometimes fall apart. There are guys that you think you have, and that doesn't work out. So you got to go to the next guy. So that's why I think that there are more than one. But I don't think you make a move with this kind of money attached to it if you don't know which direction you're going, or you don't have a lot of confidence that you're going to be able to go one direction or to one guy. So the problem with a lot of these athletic departments, as you know, Bo, is that there are a lot of different people that are pulling things in different directions, and oftentimes it's difficult to have everybody pulling things one way, and that can make things complicated, and that can I think sometimes you look at that and you say, well, I thought we had this, and then you didn't have that, and it's because a different side changed their mind and wanted to go a different direction, or somebody else came into the mix and you wanted to go there. So I think you have a pretty good idea. I don't think that means it's 100% just yet.
Who do you think are the top 3 to 4 targets?
I obviously think that I think Hugh Freeze is in the mix. I think Sark and Lane are guys that are desired by people who have power inside Auburn athletics. I keep hearing Mario Cristobal from a lot of different people that I trust, but I personally don't really see it. I think Mario's in a great spot. He's been crushing it in recruiting the last few years. Oregon just, to me, has always seemed like a place that you can go have extended success. We saw Chip Kelly do it. We saw Mark Helfrich do it. And Mark Helfrich was a guy that hadn't even called plays. And he goes in there and gets him back into the playoffs. So I know he took Chip's deal, but still, it's a weak conference, and you got plenty of support behind it. And there's a lot of toys involved with that thing that you're able to utilize in recruiting. So I think he's there. I think it's real, but that one was probably the biggest surprise for me.
Wow.
And I think Kevin Steele is definitely in the mix.
Do you really?
I think Kevin Steele is very real. I think he's very real. I think it's very possible. I think there are people that want that to happen and think that would be better. I think financially it would be one that you could probably have sold that would have made sense if you're paying the kind of money you are to get rid of Gus. And I think that they would sort of restructure some things with him now in the lead and then hope that he could take it forward.
Cole Cubelic, Auburn alum, SEC Network, Jocks in Birmingham on the Beta Amber guest line. So this Kevin's – all right, that may end up being a good hire. Maybe he is someone who can do this thing. He'd have to go get a super-duper, as you know, offensive coordinator, kind of like what Pittman did at Arkansas. But that's not going to do anything for most of the fan base. It's not going to have the sizzle of Sark, Freeze, Kiffin, and others. You agree?
Absolutely. But there are two directions that you go with these hires these days, because I think one of the problems that we have in collegiate athletics are you have business people making football decisions. So are you making a business decision or a football decision? And you can definitely cross over into both. You can make a business decision that could end up being pretty good for football. You can make a football decision that ends up being really good for business. But I think at its core, you're making decisions based on one or the other. And I mean, look at the two in-state schools there where you do your radio show. They made business decisions last year. Now, is it going to end up being pretty good in football for both of them? I think it'll be better than average. I mean, I think Lane has already surpassed expectations, and there's a lot of excitement around the program. Don't think anybody looks at it and says you're going to be contending for a national championship anytime soon or an SEC West title anytime soon. But you went toe-to-toe with Alabama and some other opponents inside the division in the league, so things are heading in the right direction. I think the Kevin Steele move would be more of a football decision because financially, fiscally, it makes a little bit of sense, and he understands how to build a program. He's got the relationships with the players, and he's a guy that I think could sort of keep a lot of the stability there that was good for what Auburn football has been the last few years. But no, you're right. It's not going to. You're not putting it up in headline. You're not building a marketing program around it like you would Mississippi State and Mike Leach. You're not coming up with little phrases. You're not going with the Butch Jones at Tennessee. Come up with a different phrase every week of how you're going to sell your program and sending recruiting postcards around with it. And you're not going. Men of Steel is not going to be like the postcard you send to your recruits, or Strong as Steel, and print T-shirts and send them around to everybody to wear. Like, that's not going to work. It's not what you're doing. So I agree with that, but I also don't think that you have to win at Auburn. I don't think you have to win let's go back. Auburn stole Tommy Tuberville from Ole Miss. Gus Malzahn came from Arkansas State. Terry Bowden was from Samford. Like, how many of those press conferences has Auburn won? I mean, Jizik came from Iowa State. Mm-hmm. It's not something Auburn's done historically. So I don't think that has to be done to ultimately find success.
And you feel like Auburn fans would be okay with Sarkisian, even though he coached it. And look, I know Pat Dye coached at Bama and so on, but I'm just going with what we got right now. You feel like Auburn fans would be, we're all in on Sark or Lane, even though they're tied to Saban?
100%, yeah. Especially Lane. I mean, I think people look at Lane as an offensive genius and a guy that's going to go. And people probably look at some of the weapons that Auburn has offensively and say, man, this guy can come in and score points and find a way to win. And he's got ties all over the place. He put a good staff together, which, I mean, I think the only thing that Sark doesn't have that Lane does, in my opinion, is the cult following. And, and give credit to Lane, what he's done on social media, the different places that he's been, where he has found success at other places. He deserves a lot of that. I think Sark deserves the same kind of respect as an offensive mind, and he still has some of the head coaching experience that Lane also brings to the table. So I think this whole what is like Sark can be getting extra money from Nick, but to come over here and be a mole for Alabama. And I mean, Sark would be looking to resurrect his career as a head coach, and he would want to go out and win games. So I don't think that would be something that Auburn fans would look at and say, I can't get behind this guy because he's a West Coast lifer who came and coached for Nick Saban and helped him win some games as his offensive coordinator. I don't think that's a real thing. Auburn's ranked 42nd in recruiting. That's hard to do. I think I could find 3 guys at happy hour to at least be at. I don't think that's happened in my life, to be honest with you. I mean, I think after 98, I think 98, 99, when I was playing and Terry Bowden was fired, I don't think things fell to that point. That's scary, to be honest with you. It really is. And there's been some decommitments here recently, and I think that actually led to some of why this decision was made. And I think that's why that there's some real talk about possibly maintaining Kevin Steele, because there are people who believe that he can go get those guys back in. He can go find some of the recruits that were committed, that love Auburn, that liked Auburn, that were probably going to come to Auburn and get them back on board, and all of a sudden get that thing back in the 20s pretty quickly. Cole Cubelic, Auburn grad, SEC Network, Jackson, Birmingham. I know you got a minute or so left here with us. All
All right. Do you think this is a deal that gets wrapped up in a week, or because, you've already done it and you're not going to get anybody in by signing day, that they can take their time and really figure out what they want to do? Cole?
I think this happens quick. I think, like I told you, I think that number one, number two are probably known. I think there is probably a little bit of a tug of war between who some folks want to get it, other folks want to get it. They need to come to the table and agree before a contract is given, and that title is laid upon the next head coach at Auburn. But I think that they're close enough as far as the number of candidates and real possibilities. This thing's not going to drag out very long.
We'll leave it there. Cole Cubelic, SEC Network on the Abita Amber guest line. Cole, we appreciate you, bud. We'll talk soon.
Thanks, Bo.
All right, so the names out there: Hugh Freeze, Sarkisian, Cristobal, Kevin Steele, and the Lane Train, among maybe some others, Billy Napier and Matt Campbell. For those of you just joining us, and I don't ever need to take this for granted, Mario Cristobal is the head coach at Oregon. Matt Campbell is the head coach at Iowa State. Napier's at what I consider La Lafayette. And y'all know where the rest are. Lane's obviously at Ole Miss. Sark's the offensive coordinator at Bama. Lane and Sark are very close. Kevin Steele, he's been the defensive coordinator there since 2016. Before that, he was the DC at LSU, linebackers coach at Alabama in 2014. Remember, he's the guy that Dabo Swinney fired to hire Brent Venables, just to kind of connect all these dots. And look, Kevin Steele is recognized as an excellent defensive coach. Sometimes things happen. I think they gave up 70 in a bowl game to West Virginia. I can't remember exactly, but Dabo moved off of Kevin Steele and hired Brent Venables from Oklahoma. But let me give you some other things that Kevin Steele has done. He coached under some guy by the name of Tom Osborne at Nebraska.
Who is that?
Okay. Johnny Majors at Tennessee. 4 years with the Carolina Panthers. I want to say that was, no, I can't remember, but Wesley Wallace was there then. I can't remember who the coach was. Y'all can let me know on the Twitters or text line. He coached under Bobby Bowden. And then he coached under Nick Saban. So let's go through some of these Hall of Famers. He coached under Nick Saban, Bobby Bowden, Tom Osborne, Johnny Majors, and, of course, Gus Malzahn. 2015 was Les Miles at LSU. But there's some big names in that. He's 62 years old. He played at Tennessee. And he never got that gig. I'm sure that's what he wanted. And his head coaching experience, I don't know how much to deem on this. He coached at Baylor for 4 years. And Baylor was awful for decades. But still, this is not good. He went 9-36 at Baylor and 1-31 in the conference play.
Subpar.
He would have to go out and get an awesome offensive coordinator. Now, Auburn can afford to pay. And, the question is, are these guys, so many of these coaches aren't capable of identifying these guys. We see it all the time. Will Muschamp couldn't do it.
Well, what did
Kirby Smart's yet to do it?
It's about relationships. And so if you don't have relationships with innovative people because you've always been on a conservative-minded football team, then you're not gonna pick those people.
Yeah, and so I don't know what he would he be willing to run what Kendall Briles and Lane Kiffin are running. This modern air raid, blah, 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 whatever you want to call it. Is Kevin still capable of doing that, or is he going to go with, as Blake is, he's 62 years old, and that's still not, Kevin Steele's taking care of himself. That's young this day and age if you're working out and eating right. It is.
But it's also not young in the sense of football innovation.
Right.
So there's two sides to that coin.
And so am I selling him? I don't know. Maybe he does surprise us and go get the next Lane, Sark, Kendall Briles as an OC. Now, Auburn, or do they just bypass that and go get Sark, who's done his rehab, like Lane did his rehab under Saban. And Sark has been able to piece together this West Coast stuff with a lot of other things that are going on in the game. And what Lane did on offense at Alabama, Sark's taking it to another level.
Well, can I ask this question? What's Auburn's recruiting been on average the last 20 years?
12, 11.
Okay. Has Gus and or the combination of Kevin Steele on staff made that recruiting any different?
No.
Okay.
So they're going to recruit. By the way, I know this number 42 right now is an outlier.
It's an anomaly. Yeah.
I hate to say this is tough for a lot of our listeners will get it. A lot will not. It doesn't matter who they hire. They're always going to recruit around number 12.
So that's my question. If that truth exists and you believe that, and I do, and
right.
I think most outside objective football fans would just look at the way people recruit in college football, and you say some of these, like we talk about range bound, you have a 3 to 4 spot
right.
where you just seem to fall.
You are who you are,
regardless of coach. There may be one outlier, negative or positive, but it seems to be always that range. If that's what Auburn is, then you don't keep Kevin Steele because you think it might get you a couple recruits back in the 2021 class. You can't make that hire because of.
I couldn't agree with you more.
If you think he's a good football guy and he will make good hires on offense and defense and you will build the program the way you want to, then you hire him. But if you think he's just going to bring back some names in 2021 that in the grand scheme of things don't matter, then you don't hire that guy.
If he's such a fantastic recruiter, why is Auburn at number 42? He's still
on the staff,
involved and on the staff. I mean, that's hard to do. I think I could go get some of my kids' friends, and they could get a group, and they could be 25th at Auburn. How are you 42nd at Auburn in recruiting? I mean, what are you doing? Did everybody just check out after last year?
Gus must have
everybody
known.
went through the pandemic. You know, what are we doing? They've got 12 commits right now,
which is insane.
And they're 40, and we're signing days Wednesday.
Yeah. You're not getting 10 more by Wednesday.
If they lose 5 more, they could be sitting there on signing day with 7 guys.
In the 70s, 80s, nationally.
You know, I don't or can you make this thing happen by like tomorrow night?
What big name is there that A, would be a splash enough to flip recruits in theory, and B, would take the job immediately and make that, because there are still guys coaching, I guess. So that would be my question is what name could they hire, would show up on campus tomorrow morning or tomorrow afternoon for his press conference, be on the phone as soon as they hire him, and actually make an impact where you could sign 3 or 4 guys. Who's that name? Is it anyone other than the one we all think of immediately? Right? We all know him.
Freeze?
The Right Reverend.
You know,
he's the only name that does that for you. If you're not hiring Hugh Freeze, then it doesn't matter if you hire anybody before signing day. I don't really think.
Right. I agree.
I think he's the only
one.
Wednesday,
Thursday, or Friday.
Napier doesn't do it. Campbell, as great as he is, Cristobal, as heralded as he might be, Sarkisian would be interesting only because you'd be stealing Alabama's OC before the playoffs.
No doubt.
And would he leave? Because that's such how do you go to Sarkisian and say, hey, we want you to have the job, but you have to coach for our bitter rival for the rest of the year, and you may help them win a national title before you come here.
I don't know if Saban would even go for that either.
I don't think either would.
Yeah, I don't think either side. The Auburn boosters
wouldn't handle
and
it.
Saban wouldn't.
And there is an argument to be said by hurting your rival, you help yourself. Do you get half benefit payback right away by knowing you may have hurt Alabama's chances to win a national title?
Maybe.
Is that worth the money?
I mean,
seriously.
This is the SEC.
Seriously,
it's petty.
It's worth the money. There are boosters who are saying, hey, let's go get Sarkisian because it might keep Nick from winning a title. I 100% believe that conversation is happening right now in Auburn and around the Plains.
Maybe Auburn boosters were behind the scenes when Kiffin got hired at Florida Atlantic.
Hey, where'd FAU get that money?
Oh, man. Cole Cubelic joined us, Auburn alum, SEC Network at 7:30 today. We'll have Tom Luganville at 8:30. Welcome in. Good morning. Hope you're doing well. This is the Out of Bounds Show, brought to you by Farm Bureau Insurance. Bundle your auto and home and save with your local Farm Bureau Insurance agent. The Farm Bureau Insurance call-in line is 601-707-3750. Auburn fires Gus Malzahn. And Gus is a little bit different. Like, We don't expect Matt Luke, now Will Muschamp,
I don't even
eventually
know.
Jeremy Pruitt.
You can't put those guys. Matt Luke doesn't belong, even as bad as Will Muschamp and Jeremy Pruitt.
What's the difference?
Because
there's no difference.
Pruitt and Muschamp were, quote unquote, groomed to be head coaches, and they're in the football society looked at as like head coaches.
Yeah, but people were wrong.
It doesn't matter. Wrong and right are irrelevant when we're working a society of perceptions. And in athletics,
I don't think there's any difference between Matt Luke, Will Muschamp, and Jeremy Pruitt.
That's fine. But in the eyes of the college football world, there still is.
Right. Well, that's why. I mean, meatheads drive the.
But Pruitt and Muschamp might
Zeke
get.
Elliott was driving Dallas Cowboys wins.
Pruitt will get another job.
Help these people.
They'll get G5 jobs. If a G5 school wants to go hire Muschamp because he's an SEC coach, they'll go hire him. They're not going to hire Matt Luke. That's the difference.
Or does that just tell me that most ADs don't know what they're doing?
They don't. That's what I'm saying. But perception is reality in college football.
Okay. I just don't think there's any difference between Ed Ogeron, Matt Luke, Will Muschamp, and Jeremy Pruitt.
I agree.
And maybe even Kirby Smart. But you're right, because some of these guys coached under Saban.
Yep. And they came up through the right path. It's all about the path you come up on.
Sure. Fair enough. Hugh Freeze at Auburn would be dangerous. Now, I do think it would go up in flames, but it would be an amazing 4 or 5 year ride.
Be incredible.
What would hit the problem is talented as Freeze is at all the things we've talked about. Bama on his case, Mississippi State on his case, and Ole Miss fans on his case on social media would eventually be a disaster for him. It would. Because he would get players, he would win, he would scheme it up, he would play call it up, he would motivate. I mean, he can get 18 to 22-year-olds to buy into all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he could bottle a national championship type year.
And Auburn boosters will go after some kids.
Oh, if you thought they were rolling in Oxford, yes.
They'll go after some kids.
They'll get after it on the plains. They'll throw down in the street.
Just look at their basketball program.
Right. And they don't even care.
No.
They still don't care.
But they were like, wait, we can get good players? All right, Bruce, here's a check.
I mean, Jimmy Rain, who founded Yellowwood or the Greater Southern Wood, whatever it's called, but most people know the yellow fellow, right? I think that was his commercials coming out of the 80s.
Everybody knows that sticker, Yellowwood.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think he cares one bit about hoops, but he may have, helped the basketball program.
Well, war dang Eagle, baby.
So Sark, Freeze, Kiffin, Kevin Steele, who's their current DC.
Don't make that higher.
Oh, you can just almost tell it's going that way.
Yeah, can't you? Can't you?
I read some articles on Jimmy Rain yesterday, and obviously the man is brilliant. He literally took a company that had I'm not kidding, $5,000 worth of sales.
Mm-hmm.
Now they're $1 billion company. So the man is what America. I mean, I can't imagine the hours he worked in the 70s, 80s, and 90s before crushing it. Now he lets other people run the company. But Blake, when I tell you he is a rural Alabama, he was coaching high school football, by the way.
Heck yeah, he was.
Okay, so he went to Auburn.
So he knows about pad level.
He does. And setting the edge. All this stuff that we have to do.
Well,
on
Auburn's got to
morning.
make a hire.
I mean, I set the edge in my living room. All right. It took me a little while, but by the end of game day, I'd set the edge. Here's the deal. That guy he was a high school football coach in like 1971 in Alabama and had his law degree and was going to Birmingham to practice law, but had to get into this family business, okay? Just out of happenstance, Blake. And then he drove it to $1 billion company, and everybody knows about Yellowwood.
There you go.
But what I'm telling you is Kevin Steele is his guy. Like his type of guy.
Uh-oh.
I'm just telling you.
Uh-oh.
I could see this.
Kevin Steele, Chad Morris.
And if he gives Kevin Steele the blessing, then I think that's what they'll do. Now, who knows? Maybe it's Sark, Freeze, Mario Cristobal, Kiffin. I don't know. We're live in the Bank Plus studio. Tom Luganville at 8:30 on the Out of Bounds Show.